All right.
Hold on. 2 seconds. Look good?
Looks good.
You look good. All right.
Welcome back to Cheap Drinks and Real Estate. My name's Jason Kaufman with the Kaufman Home Group at Herron Real Estate.
I'm Adam Pearsall with APfinity Mortgage.
And if you're new to buying a house in Florida, maybe you're a first-time home buyer or just moving in to the area, it's a little bit different here compared to a lot of other states as far as costs that are concerned with buying a home. So we wanted to go over some information as far as what you're actually paying for when you buy a house. Just like our last video when I mentioned there's never any no closing cost options. We'll dive into that a little bit further and kind of explain exactly what we meant by that. But first, we got to hit you up with a cheap drink for the week.
We do need our cheap drink. What are we doing?
And I apologize, but episode 2 of being back, I still went with Aldi. Just because they have some really cheap options that I had to try out. So for today's episode, we have...
It is cheap drinks and real estate, so
It is.
Aldi makes sense.
Yeah. Limeveza Lime Lager.
Limeveza.
Limeveza. I'm not sure what their playoff of with this is, but it was $7.49 for a 6-pack, so not terrible for kind of a craft type of beer.
That is a Mexican beer, my friend. That is the play.
Yeah,
Limeveza.
for sure. Oh, yeah. You think it's Mexican? At least I dressed up for the occasion. We've got the last week of school for the kids.
Yep.
So we've got some fun stuff coming up for the summer. So it's the unofficial start of summer. So dressed for the occasion, brought in the Mexican lager to kind of...
Our summer drink.
Our summer drink.
Our summer drink.
Possibly our summer drink. We'll see.
Yeah. 4.5%.
4.5% alcohol.
Yep.
The one thing I've noticed with a lot of the Aldi stuff, it does not have calorie content, carb content, and anything like that.
They don't want to tell you any of that.
No, they're like, it's high in everything.
Yeah.
So.
That's why it's $7 for a 6-pack.
But let's try it out. Oh,
Let's see what we think. You guys remember, we're going to go ahead and taste the drinks, drink them throughout the episode. Stick around till the end. Find out what we think. We'll give it a little rating. Let you know if it's a buy or a pass. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Let's go. Did we already cheers?
Oh, yeah, we did. But
It's
let's
all
do it one more time. Oh, tastes like something I've had before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not bad.
No.
No. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll give the rating on that. I got to sip on that for a minute. That's different.
Yeah, it is
that
different.
doesn't taste like anything I've ever had before.
I feel like I've had something similar to that before, but yeah, I'll kind of hit on that later.
All right, we'll get to it. Well, why don't you start, Jason, by telling me, what does it cost to buy a house in Florida?
Well, that depends on what size house you're looking for, where you're looking, everything like that, because obviously we know if you're buying in Jacksonville compared to Nocatee, it's a completely different ball game. But I mean, I'd say average all around. I mean, if you're looking at a mid-size house in a good area, stuff like that, probably around, we'll call it $500,000.
All right. For
Would
the
you
medium
agree?
for the medium price?
Yep, for a medium price.
I would agree with that. Yeah, but let's dive in. So what we want to do today with you guys, like we were saying earlier, is not just what's the median cost of a house. Who cares, right? We want to know what's it actually take to buy the house. What's it cost, right? As far as, closing costs, like we discussed. Is there such thing as a no closing cost loan?
Yeah.
And what are the closing costs associated with the loan, and why are they there?
Yeah. And I mean, it's the big time of the year right now since school is getting out. You got a lot of people coming down to Florida, testing the market as far as what houses are like down here, what the climate's like during the summer. So you got a lot of people moving into the area. Mm-hmm. You also have a lot of first-time home buyers that don't have any idea what to expect when buying a house.
Yep.
They just think, boom, I'm going to go. I have money saved for a down payment. I'm going to go. I'm going to buy a house. I got the money. Let's go.
Yeah.
But one thing that they don't realize is all the costs associated with the process of buying that house to ensure that you have enough money saved up for that.
Well, there's two sides of that, right? It's kind of funny. So a lot of times with first-time home buyers, when we're talking to them, or if you meet somebody at the bar or on your boat, wherever you are, and you talk to somebody about it, and some people think, first of all, that it's completely unattainable, right? That it's like, oh, I have to have 20% down.
Yep.
You know, like PMI I want to avoid because it's the devil,
Right.
and it costs so much money. So unless I have 20% down, it doesn't even make sense to buy a house.
Right.
And so they don't realize what's out there, what the options are with the true cost to that. And they really don't know what the options are with closing costs, like we talked about.
And you have to kind of understand what your upfront costs are going to be as far as during the process of buying that house, and then what your end game is going to be as far as what the final closing costs are going to be along with that down payment.
Yep.
So that's kind of what we're going to talk about here, kind of give you a rundown. So grab a pen and paper if you want, follow us along, and we will guide you through the process of buying a house in Florida.
Yeah, drop a comment. Obviously, if you have any questions, we'll always get back to you on it.
Yep.
But we're going to do a kind of a quick breakdown. We don't want to keep you guys here all day and bore you with a bunch of numbers, but we do want you to understand that, one, owning a home is affordable, still can be affordable. There's tons of options. And again, what the costs are and why the cost exists and how they can be paid and structured when buying a house.
Exactly.
So,
and I mean, for first-time home buyers, like, again, just understanding the process, and with the first-time home buyers, there's still a lot of options out there for them for mortgages and stuff like that.
Yep.
I think, are there still grants out there right now?
There's some that are out there. There's down payment assistance that's needed. A lot of them are income based.
Yep.
So kind of depends on how much money you make, whether you can qualify for it or not. So, but yeah, there is options on that. And that's probably another episode. We go into down payment assistance and stuff like that. But there are options that are available for that. And if anybody's watching this and has a question or a need on that, or it's something they want to explore, give us a call, and that's a pretty quick conversation to have.
Yep. So essentially, when we go through this whole process, we're going to be utilizing $500,000, a purchase of a $500,000 house, as our baseline when we're talking about costs associated with everything. And on my side, once you actually go in, you make an offer on a property, you come to an agreement with the seller, and you start moving forward, the very first thing that you're going to have is you're going to have a earnest money deposit, which is essentially a binder deposit that is held by a title company. Typically, that is around 1-2% of the purchase price.
Yep.
So if you're talking a $500,000 house, be prepared that about $5,000 to $10,000 is going to go to the title company, which is held there until all the contingencies, inspections, appraisal, loan approval, all that stuff, once those are cleared, and once you go to close, that comes back to you at the time of closing. So it's not necessarily a fee, but it is something to understand that you're going to have that up front in order to move forward with the purchase of the house.
Yeah, let's break that down a little bit more. It's a good faith deposit, right? You're putting the seller's accepting your offer, agreeing to take the house off the market, and you're putting down the deposit in good faith, which you said, like, on average is 1% to 2%.
It's essentially a deposit to hold the house.
Correct.
For your process.
And so what happens is that that money that goes down, no matter how much it is, that money is essentially through inspections. Through the inspection period is fully refundable, right? So if something comes up on inspection,
as long as the contract is written properly.
That's correct, right? As long as it's structured. But traditionally, that's the way the contracts are structured. That if for whatever reason, you get the home inspection done on the property once you're under contract, there's the roof is just an absolute disrepair or whatever, something else that's considered catastrophic. It doesn't even have to be catastrophic. Really, at any point, you have the ability, based on the inspection, if something's not to your liking, to back out and get fully refunded that deposit. Now, when we go into the rest of this and we're breaking down the cost for you guys, let's say your total out of pocket is going to be $25,000. I'm making up numbers here, and you've put down a $10,000 binder deposit. Okay, then with your total cash that's due at closing, that binder deposit, as Jason touched on, does go towards that. You're credited that money. So, whatever you've put down for the binder deposit, whatever that amount is, will be credited towards the total amount that you need at closing. That includes your down payment and closing costs, et cetera.
Yep. So if you owe $25,000 at close, $10,000 comes off of it. So then you're actually at $15,000.
Right.
So you're actually paying $25,000 at close because $10,000 of it you put up front. The remainder of it you're paying at close.
That's right.
So that's a good kind of idea as far as how the binder deposits actually go.
Yeah.
Now, once you actually come to an agreement, you put your binder deposit down on that property, then starts the inspection period. So some things that you can anticipate for inspections, you've got your home inspection, which covers the inspection of the property.
Yep.
You've got WDO inspection, which is wood destroying organisms, which covers termites, wood rot, stuff like that.
Florida bugs.
Yes. So I always recommend a WDO, and certain loans are going to require it no matter what.
That's right.
So, you've got home inspection, which is typically around $700 maybe. You got WDO, which is typically another $100, $200,
$150 on average.
$150.
Yeah.
You've got other types of inspections. Maybe you want a mold inspection. That can be up to $800 to $1,000 depending on the size of the home. And then that's pretty much the majority of the inspection.
Yeah, unless you have the only other little options, if we want to touch them all, is that if your house is on septic, or if you have a well for your water, you can get septic inspections and well inspections. Some loans require that as well if that exists. So there are some that are required. Generally, like either the WDO, the well, or septic test are the only ones that can be required by the loan product that you could potentially be getting. Realistically, every other inspection technically is an option. Any good agent, anybody that has your best interest in mind, is never going to have you spend $500,000 on a house or even $100,000 on a house and tell you not to pay $700 for an inspection.
Right.
You should always get one. If
yeah.
anybody ever gives you the advice not to do that, it's bad advice.
Yeah.
You know?
So, I mean, essentially inspections at that point, you're talking anywhere from, call it $800 to $1,500, depending on what type of mixture of inspections you're actually having done for this size of a house.
And it's easy to argue that's the best money you'll spend in the entire process of buying the house.
Exactly. Because you don't want to walk into a house that's going to be bad roof or rotten
or termites,
anything, damage, stuff like that.
Anything.
So that is your prime time to ensure that that house is up to par until you clear that contingency, which then after the 10, 15 days, whatever the inspection contingency is, then you no longer can get out of that contract based on condition of the house.
Right.
Unless something happens just before close, which, well, we can always touch on that.
Yeah. But yeah, the home inspection is definitely one of the most critical parts. I mean, always get one. That's the bottom line.
And then the next step on that would
let's
be
real quick before we go into that. Let's touch on that a little more. So for like first time home buyers are out there, or somebody that hasn't bought a house in a long time, whatever the case may be, just to kind of finalize the inspection talk on that. We want you guys to understand how detailed these inspections are, right? How long they take.
As long as you have the right home inspector.
Agreed. Yeah. Now, who you work with matters, right?
Yes.
That ties into who your agent is, who the recommendations are going to be for who you work with, and all of that. But these inspections are incredibly thorough, for the most part. I
just had one the other day that was, now not to scare anybody, but it was 254 pages long. And that was detailing everything, because that inspector wants to make sure that you understand everything going on with that house, every nook and cranny, every potential thing.
It could be as simple as what? Like, give an example.
It can be as simple as, say, seam in some drywall.
Correct.
Like there could be some settling, stuff like that. So if it's going to be a warning sign,
a light bulb's out. The light switch is cracked. Right? Like all of that stuff. I mean, you will literally get this home inspection and know everything that is going on with this house.
You'll even know where the water shutoff is. You'll know where the sewer drain out is. You'll know everything about that house with these home inspections.
Right. And that's the point, is to know your house inside and out, so that when you do get into it, you kind of know. I mean, there's so many things that come back on these home inspections that people look at them and go, holy cow, it's X amount of pages. I don't even care about any of this stuff. But at least you know about it.
Exactly.
So,
So a lot of it, you really want to stick to the main points of it. So the wood rot, the roof, the HVAC, the electrical, the plumbing. You want to make sure the big ticket items. Those are the biggest things that's going to cost you money down the road. The cosmetic stuff you can fix easily along the line.
Right.
So I always suggest to my clients, don't stress out about a little bit of grout missing from some tile.
Right.
Because that's easy to repair.
Right.
Worry about the big stuff. Focus on that stuff.
But again, at least you know about the little piece of grout that's missing. It's that detailed. So just want to make sure you guys understood that.
So then I'm sure you can probably attest to the next part, which would be the next fee that you would pay. Oh, and by the way, these initial fees are paid out of pocket before closing. So your home inspection, that is not in your final closing costs. I just want to make sure that we understand that. So these are just fees that you're going to be paying up to the closing. So the next one on that would be appraisal.
Yep. So the appraisal, once you're under contract, you get your home inspection done. A lot of times we have the conversation with the buyer and the agent, right?
Yep.
Are there concerns going into the home? Are we worried that there might be some things on the home inspection that we just know up front could potentially be an issue?
Mm-hmm.
And when that's the case, we might wait to order the appraisal until after the inspection has been completed, right? And the inspection is done right away. You go under contract, right? They put down their binder deposit. Inspection's usually scheduled for like the next day or within the next 48 hours, really, right?
Well, we'll schedule it within 24 hours.
Right.
It might be 3-4 days before you actually get the inspection done.
But it's fast. It's quick.
Yep.
So
Yep.
we do have the ability generally to hold off and say, okay, before, an appraisal costs on average about $550,
Right.
Is about the average cost of the appraisal. So before you put that money up and we make you spend that money, we're going to make sure that the inspection, comes back good, and we're ready to go to order that appraisal.
Because I personally don't want any of my clients to be coming out of pocket any more money than they need to until we know that house is sound. So Adam and I work together all the time. He's always on my case. Hey, is the inspection done? Once it's done, I say, yep, we're good to go. And then he will contact you with regards to ordering the appraisal and ensuring that's going.
Yep. And then it helps us also know if there's anything that the appraiser might hit on. Right. If we know, that could come back. So
because like you touched on before, certain things are going to trigger on certain loan types. So FHA and VA are the primary ones, right?
Yep.
So, if they inspect and they find WDO, that's going to need to be fixed before you close on a VA loan for sure. FHA, is it the same with that?
Yeah. And what they do is on these WDO reports is it's as simple as peeling paint. They're that finicky about it on some of these loan products. So if you have a piece of wood or border somewhere and there's peeling paint off of it, they're going to require that the seller paint that piece of wood so that it's sealed up and it's good to go. So there's lots of little nuances to those.
So then once we actually get the appraisal back and we're clear with that, there's really no other fees until closing time.
No, really.
So we pass those. So now we got loan approval. So we go through the whole process. You put an offer on the house, you get an acceptable amount, you go through the inspection time frame, which is 10-15 days. Then you've got the appraisal back. That clears the conditions for the home loan. Then you've got loan contingency, which is your approval to purchase that house from the lender.
Right.
Once we get the loan approval, then we can go to close.
Yep.
So at close, you're going to see a lot of numbers on that spreadsheet, on that Alta.
Yeah.
And it's going to have a lot of fees that the seller pays for, a lot of fees that you pay for.
Yep.
So those fees, and breaking those down, the main thing when it comes to lenders out there saying there's no closing costs, what they're talking about is they are talking about lender fees, which, depending on the lender, a lot of the times they're going to charge you lender fees.
Well, it can go both sides on that. So to back up just a little bit on that, as far as out-of-pocket expense, right? Where we talked about, we've got the cost of the inspections and then we've got the cost of the appraisal. Mm-hmm. Realistically, if you're working with a good lender who isn't trying to charge you through the roof, okay, it does matter what lender you work with out there. There's going to be lenders that charge you an application fee just to fill out the application to apply for the mortgage. Okay. And that can range from $200 to $500 for an application fee. They'll charge you up front for a credit report fee. Obviously they have to pull your credit, right, to see if you're approved or not. Yep. Okay. Lenders will charge you for that. Credit reports these days are unbelievable. When I got into this business, credit reports cost like $18. Today they cost about $130.
That's insane.
To pull a credit report, which is crazy. And there are lenders out there that we're not eating that fee. That is being passed to you up front, whether you buy this house or not. So you might have to pay an application fee. You might have to pay a credit report fee, which now we're just adding another few $100 to your upfront out-of-pocket cost. APfinity, we don't charge any of that to you up front.
Oh, that's good.
We take the credit report hit. We take that. You do pay for it at closing, ultimately, if you close on the loan. We do not have any application fees. Those are all what we call junk fees, right, in this business.
Because I know I used to work for a big mortgage company, and we always
they take you to the moon?
Where they take you to the moon.
Okay. Yeah.
On a rocket.
Right.
But that was way back when. But I know we always charged a certain amount on a credit card up front.
That's right.
And that if you don't close that loan with them, they'll refund you minus those fees.
That's essentially an application fee. It's just the way that they're structuring it.
And I know back in the day we would charge $500.
Yeah.
And then as we go through the process, if you don't close that loan, you might get back $50, $100 once everything's all set.
You're out the application fee though. So just to touch on that, look, your out-of-pocket cost, you shouldn't have any of that. It's ridiculous. Why should you have to pay me for me to do my job to try and get you pre-approved? So no application fees, no upfront credit report fees. That's what you should be looking for in your lender. And that's what we give you at APfinity. But to go back to the closing disclosure and the Alta and what we're going to see on that when we finally do get to time to go to closing and it says, all right, we're getting ready to write checks, right? Because we're finishing buying the house. You know, when we talk about no closing cost loans, or when you hear that, it is what it is. It's an advertisement.
Right.
Okay. It's designed to get you to call. And the bottom line is that in a mortgage, right? Let's go through it real quick. So you've got your lender fees, you got your title fees, you've got your recording fees for the county and state that you're in for recording of the mortgage, et cetera. And this full breakdown of fees. And the realization is that on your loan estimate that you get at the beginning of the loan or on the closing disclosure at the very end of the loan, box A, it's the first box listed on both documents, is the lender fees. And that's really what separates lender to lender there. The interest rate that you're getting, how much is it costing you to get it? Are you paying admin fees, underwriting fees, points, right, for the interest rate that you're getting? That's the separator from lender to lender. Everything from box B all the way through the end of it, I think it goes through L, is all third-party fees that are real fees. They have to be paid.
Yeah, no matter what. Those are fees. Those are closing costs.
Right.
But they are costs to do the processing of the purchase of the house.
The cost to do business.
Yeah.
And that is the same no matter what lender you go with. Those numbers are going to be the same. And those fees have to be paid. So when you hear no closing cost loan, right, what you're hearing is okay, those fees have to be paid by somebody. They're just not going to be paid by you, Mr. Borrower. And there's a place for those loans. It's not to knock them. There are people who simply don't have enough savings to say, hey, I can do my down payment plus pay all the closing costs. All right. So what you're doing is you're taking a slightly higher interest rate generally, which is going to pay back some yield spread. It's a lender credit that ultimately comes back to you that is then dispersed to pay the closing costs on the behalf of the borrower. So when you hear no closing cost loan, remember, somebody's paying the closing cost, and ultimately it is the borrower. It's how is the borrower paying for them? It's either in a seller concession, right, which we can touch on. It's in taking a slightly higher interest rate so that there's yield spread from that interest rate to pay the cost. But remember, if you're taking a slightly higher interest rate to pay those closing costs, over time, you're paying those closing costs multiple times
because you're paying it in interest.
Correct. Right.
So it essentially comes down to
how are you paying
the life
for
of the loan? The life of the loan. How long is it going to actually take for you to break even on that? Essentially.
So whether you're coming out of pocket for it up front or you're coming out of pocket over time through the interest rate and your monthly payment, ultimately the buyer is paying for the closing cost. The one way that does not happen, and we've touched on this before in other videos, seller concessions. Right. And we don't have to go into that again because we have covered some of that, but that's where ultimately in the negotiation where your realtor negotiates that, and ultimately we can get 3%, 4%, whatever we need that can cover all of your closing costs. In that scenario, again, the closing costs are still being paid, but they're being paid by the seller.
Right.
And that is a true benefit to the
when
buyer.
you do seller concessions, it's essentially rolling those costs into the loan. So you're still paying for those over the life because of the fact that if you, and I don't want to get off too much off subject, but just to reiterate, I know we've talked about this before, but if you go out and you purchase a house and you want to pay all your own closing costs, then you're going to pay a lower price than if you want those rolled in.
Right.
So on a $500,000 purchase, you might offer $520,000 and have your closing costs rolled in.
Right.
If you want your closing costs that you're going to pay at the end of the day, then it might be $500,000.
Right.
So,
well, it all boils down to the net number that the seller wants, right? I mean, who holds the cards ultimately is the seller and what they decide to take. So if the seller has in their mind, okay, no matter what, I've got to clear $500,000 in my pocket, if we're, to use that as an example, they're willing to negotiate wherever it wants to be above that to make sure that they just net $500,000.
Right. Yep.
So, we don't have to dive any more into that, but that is generally how that works. I think we're both on the same wavelength here, that the other thing that we have not touched on yet is prepaid items. Right.
When you go to close, you have to prepay your homeowner's insurance. Mm-hmm. You have to prepay taxes. If you have CDD fees, if you have HOA fees, you have to prepay a lot of those, or pay what the seller has already paid on those. So those are other costs that you're going to incur when you close, but they're not technically costs. They're prepaid items for things that you're going to be utilizing once you purchase that house.
Right. So I'll break that down for you just real quick. So your prepaids are ultimately, if you're going to have an escrow account for your homeowner's insurance and your property taxes, then you're going to have some prepaids there to fund the escrow account. Why is that? Well, the reason why we have to fund an escrow account is that, one, your monthly payment isn't the next month after you close on a house, right?
Right.
So let's say it's May. Okay, and we close in the month of May. You're not going to have a mortgage payment for the month of May. You're not going to have one for the month of June. Your first mortgage payment is going to be due in July.
Yep.
However, we know that your insurance is going to be effective the day that you took over the house on whatever date in May, right? So with the first payment not being paid until July, you're only going to ultimately pay 10 months worth of payments, and then 12 months worth of insurance is going to be due the following year to renew your insurance policy for you. So what happens is the lenders collect a small buffer. We collect the 2 month gap where you're not making the payment in May and June. And then we collect a 1 month buffer just to make sure there's not a shortage in that account. And then after the 12 months, there's an escrow analysis that's done. That 1 month overage is usually in there. The client receives that back shortly after the policy is renewed.
And I can attest to, you never want to have, once that escrow information comes out, have a shortage, because then you're either going to have to tack on more money on your monthly payment, or you're going to have to pay one lump sum to cover that. Check. And you don't want to do that. So make sure that that's taken care of in advance. Which is...
And then the property taxes are the same way. A lot of times your property taxes, you're going to be responsible for the property taxes from the date you take over the house. Property taxes here in Florida are generally, they're due in March, towards the end of March, but we pay them in November.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's the end of March. And then we pay them in November, though, because Florida offers a discount. If you pay in February, it's a little bit cheaper. If you pay in January, it's a little bit cheaper, et cetera. As early as November, you get the biggest discount on your property taxes for paying them in November. So lenders here will absolutely disperse your escrow account in the month of November to make sure that you get the best discount there. So same thing, we're going to collect 3 months worth of property taxes up front too, just to establish that we're, for the month that we're not making a payment, the 2 months that we're not making a payment, and then the 1 month buffer to make sure that we don't come up short. So that's
prepaids. No matter what, you're going to have those, unless you don't have the escrow, but you will still have some fees at closing to cover what the seller has already paid at that point.
And you're not required to have an escrow account. There's lots of options. Some loans do require it. There's some minimum down payments that require it, but generally if you're putting down 5% minimum or more, you can waive that escrow account and you're allowed to pay your own taxes and insurance if you so choose to do so. And some people like the escrow accounts because it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. But so
essentially we know we got the down payment, we have the lender fees, if there are any, title fees, appraisal fee, the inspections, the property insurance, and the property taxes. That's essentially everything. I want to touch on insurance really quick.
Okay.
Hold those numbers there.
Welcome to Florida again. Talk insurance.
Welcome to Florida, depending on what part of Florida you're actually in. So Florida gets a bad rap with homeowners insurance prices because you have a lot of major hurricane areas. You got the southeast area that always gets hit. You've got the West Coast area. You got the Panhandle, all that stuff. And we've talked on this before on previous episodes that in Northeast Florida, the Jacksonville area does not really get hit. The last direct landfall was what, 1968?
Yeah, something like in the 60s.
Like so the last direct landfall, and so we don't have the same insurance prices that a lot of these other areas.
No, we're not South Florida. We're not South Florida, not the West Coast of Florida.
So when I actually just do a search online, it's going to say, oh, you can expect your homeowner's insurance to be $3,500 to $7,000.
And a lot of that requires the hurricane deductible
Right.
is based on that, right?
So here in Florida, depending on the house size, if you're talking a $500,000 house, depends on if you have a pool or not, depends on how old the roof is, a number of different scenarios. But I would say on average, a house with no pool, you're talking $1,500 to $2,500.
Yeah,
we'll call it $2,000.
Yeah, usually somewhere between for the easy math, usually somewhere between like $150 and $200 a month.
Right, but for the purposes of what you're going to be paying before close.
Well, correct.
So you're always going to pay 1 year in advance,
right,
for your homeowner's insurance, and then you're going to have the prepaid items, on that as well.
So the reason why that is, well, we'll explain that real fast. It takes 2 seconds. The reason why is because insurance is paid forward, right? You're funding the year forward. You're insured. If you close on March 15th on your house, you're funding your insurance for March 15th of the year you're in through March 15th of the next year. Whereas property taxes are paid in arrears.
Yep.
Every November when we go ahead and we disperse, if you have an escrow account, or even if you don't have one and you're paying it, you're paying the bill at that point for the year that just passed. So that's the difference. And so that's why you're seeing that you're having to fund that insurance premium up front, because you're going ahead and ensuring that the house is insured for the year ahead of you. Right. And then if you have an escrow account, as you're making your monthly payment, there's enough money in there come your renewal date in 12 months for that money to be dispersed to renew for the next year going forward. Right. And that's why there's only 3 months of property taxes collected to fund your escrow account instead of 15. Right.
Yep.
So because one is taxes are paid in arrears, insurance, you're always paid for the year that's upcoming. You don't, I guess the concern there would be if your house burned down or got blown over by a hurricane, they pay out, then you don't pay the rest of the policy. I don't know. I just assume that would be it.
I would assume that would probably be.
Yeah.
We've got 5% down, $25,000. You've got typically anywhere from 2 to 3% after all your fees are concerned for closing costs, your prepaid items, everything like that. So we'll call it 3% on a high side estimate.
Sure. That would include the escrow account and everything in there. Yep.
So we'll call it 3%. So $15,000 for closing costs.
Yep.
So you're talking at that point, $40,000. $40,000 plus the cost of the inspections and that you pay up front, and the appraisal that you pay up front. So at closing table, minus your $10,000 binder deposit, you will owe approximately $30,000.
That's right.
Right?
Yep.
My mathin'?
That's mathin'.
All right.
That's how it works.
now we know that. Now, can we skip the rest of that and go on to this drink?
Yeah.
I wanted to say at one point, this is way different when you first open it and it's cold to now I'm sipping on it and it's hot out today.
It is hot.
It's warm.
I'm sweating. You can probably see it.
I actually don't have any dripping down me, but yeah, you're glistening.
I am.
But it's good. It was good.
Mine's almost gone.
Mine is nearly gone. I got like maybe that much left. But once you get down to the bottom on a hot day, make sure you have a koozie, a really good koozie, because it does not taste the same on the back end. So my score when I give this is going to be a 2-tier, a 2 different price, or a 2 different score, because I'm going to give it when it's cold.
Yeah.
And if you don't,
no one likes a hot drink. We don't need your hot score. What's the score?
I'm going to give it the score, and then what it is if you don't have a koozie in Florida.
Fair enough.
All right. You want to say it both at the same time?
No, go ahead. What do you got? You go first.
I'm going to give it a 6.
A 6?
A 6.
I think that's a little low. I don't mind this. I think
we were completely off on the last episode, but I'm going to say this is a 6. I don't know. It's got a weird limey taste, almost like a salted lime drink, which I guess is a Mexican.
It's funny you say it. It is like salty. That's like what I couldn't put my thumb on, but it is. It's like almost salty.
It tastes like if you had
salted lime.
It tastes like if you had a Corona with lime and added some salt.
Yeah. So I don't actually think it's that bad. I was going to give it like a 6.6, 6.7. But I would buy this for $7.
I would buy it too for $7.50.
Yeah.
I mean, I would buy it as well, but I'd make sure I keep a koozie, because again, I'd say it's a 6 when it's cold.
Yeah.
If you don't have a koozie, it's going down to a 1.5.
That's fair.
Real fast.
It's not bad though. It's not bad. Like Yeah, I would drink it.
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
terrible. So
I
that's
would
a
have
buy
it.
for me for $7 for a 6-pack.
On a day,
Look, we're in
when-
the days here where it's $16 for a 6-pack half the time. So
I mean, on a day when you're cutting the lawn, this is a nice little refreshing drink.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's got salt in it, so it might hydrate you.
yeah. Yeah,
I don't
and it's
think
from
any
Aldi.
beer-
It's probably like the beer of cheap liquor. Like,
Yeah.
it'd probably give you a heck of a hangover.
Yeah,
you know,
if you have
like,
too many.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But I'm a buyer of this. I'm impressed with it.
I'd
I
buy
actually
it.
thought it was pretty
I'd
good.
buy it, but I'd also buy a koozie right next to it.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Well, again, as usual, if you guys have any questions, comments, anything, feel free to shoot a comment in the video. If you have any questions, you can feel free. If it's real estate related, feel free to reach out to me. Our phone numbers are always in the comments.
That's right.
Or always in the description.
Yep.
If you have any mortgage related questions, Adam's your guy. I think that just about does it. If you have any further questions on more of a breakdown, feel free to reach out at any time.
Yeah.
But make sure that you don't fall for the no closing costs lender stuff, and make sure that when you do a purchase on a house, make sure that it is fully cleared to make sure that you have all the contingencies taken care of, so you don't lose that.
And get a home inspection.
And get a home inspection
Every time.
single time. Even on new builds, I highly suggest it.
Yeah,
because builders aren't what they used to be.
No, we see a lot of that, actually. We do. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks for being here. Go buy a Limeveza.
Yeah.
I'm more of a fan than Jason is.
A little bit more.
I think you should try it.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks
See you
for
next
tuning
time,
in.
guys.
See you next time.